What's printing on the MakerBot right now?
So the deal is that, first of all, it's ridiculously hard to find any PLA anywhere in the country where we can go pick it up. I finally found some spools from some provider that I haven't heard from before, and they arrived earlier this week. And so basically I'm just kind of testing them out. The different colors that you have for PLA seem to provide different build reliability. So like we had orange before, and we were having a lot of trouble getting that to really reliably print out without jamming or stopping and do that type of thing. When we had some spools of white, that was probably the best experience that we had. It printed out stuff pretty consistently and reliably with no problem. So I ordered a bunch of new spools of white, but again, they're from a different, carrier, so we'll see whether they translate into the same reliability. But that's what I'm testing out right now. I'm just building some Rally Fighter parts on there, some more of the mirror spacers, just as an excuse to run that plastic through and see how reliable it is. Right now, it's printing really well, but one of the things that we found out was that it's doing a lot to how much resistance there is at the spool. And when we have a spool just riding on the back the way it's supposed to be riding, it ends up trying to jam on you one way or another. But if you keep rolling the spool so the filament's always loose, you don't have those feed problems. So we've actually started talking about whether we want to have a situation where the spool is actually mounted up above the machine so that the filament is always feeding relatively straight down to the head, and then also getting a bearing, an axle with a bearing set up on it, so there's little to no rolling resistance.
The joys of working in a factory.
So there's little to no rolling resistance when the little feeder wheel in here is tugging the filament down to load it up. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you guys will kind of see how this one goes, and
yeah. Well, I mean, this was just an experiment. You can see I just kind of dumped the filament in the back loose, and that was to see whether that made any kind of a difference. And the result is that as long as I keep the loops just feeding freely up into the head, totally reliable, building and whatnot. But the minute you put it on a spool and you try and run it off of, this is usually where you mount the spool to. This hangs off the back of the unit, and the spool goes on to this axis basically, and that's where it feeds from. But you can even see on the sides of it the edge, and that's just from the thing twisting slowly over time. The spool twisting slowly over time, it just wears into it because there's resistance plastic to plastic. So we tried with a metal one. We could probably polish that up. You can see just a quick weld on there. We tack welded it on a tube and just kind of seat the spool on there. But even there you can see it's starting to polish the metal, and I was running it on this last night, and when I came into this, so failed build. So this is still not good enough. So I think we need some rollerblade bearings or something like that with a tube, and that should hopefully make it light enough that it won't jam up just because it's having to tug too hard to pull the plastic into the head. So that's really where we're going. Plus, I mean, if it's up here, it'll feed better and that type of thing, and it'll look really badass. So.
Cool. Well, we'll keep everyone updated on this feed.